Twice now on this channel, I've reviewed movies that were made as tribute films to comedy acts from the 1930s. These films tried to recreate the performers that made those acts so great. Both films, while fun tributes, failed to capture the same magic that made the original acts so special. But there was one film that succeeded in its mission to pay tribute to a wildly successful comedy team from the Golden Age, while also managing to be its own thing. A film known as Brain Donors, and it's an almost cult classic. This is the first almost cult classic review, where I'll be talking about a movie that I didn't grow up with. I saw this film for the first time only a few years ago. While I remembered enjoying it for what it was, I also quickly forgot that it existed. In my reviews of the Laurel and Hardy and Three Stooges remake films, I got a lot of comments from those who did grow up with this movie though, requesting I give it a second look. This film was out of print for years, but it recently got a release on the Warner Archive DVD label, and I decided to check it out again. And I'm pleased to report that I absolutely loved this movie the second time around. For those unfamiliar with it, the film is a tribute to the films of the Marx Brothers, and while it takes a lot of its story beats and character traits from the famous trio, it also does just enough differently to make it stand on its own. Unlike the Laurel and Hardy and Three Stooges reboots I've talked about, this film didn't try to carbon copy the original Marx Brothers, but rather created new characters inspired by those performances. John Turturro stars as the Groucho-esque character, an ambulance-chasing attorney named Roland T. Flackpfizer.
How many of you saw this man carelessly and without regard for life and property careen into my clients at almost 85 miles per hour? And who of you will tell their story to my young 24-year-old Miss International wet t-shirt champion nymphomaniac secretary? Yo!
He's just excellent at executing Groucho-style quips and comebacks, but really does make this performance his own.
And to show you no hard feelings, how about a cigar?
I don't smoke.
Well, I do. Why don't you run out and get me one?
The late Mel Smith plays the Chico equivalent, a cabbie named Rocco, who instead of having an Italian accent, speaks in his natural British one.
You were my attorney in my divorce case. Until you started dating my wife during the trial. And you got the court to double the alimony request she originally made.
Well, you didn't want her to keep seeing me in cheap motels, did you? For God's sake, man, she was your wife.
Bob Nelson plays the Harpo equivalent Jacques, who unlike Harpo actually speaks a bit in this film. Admittedly, I haven't seen this guy in other films, but he's a really wonderful physical comic, and you can tell he's been inspired by Harpo Marx. The film is basically a story remake of the Marx Brothers film A Night at the Opera, only instead of an opera, the film centers around a ballet production. Nancy Marchand, who would later be known to audiences for her role on The Sopranos, is also just wonderful as Lillian Oglethorpe, essentially the Margaret Dumont character in this film. The plot finds Lillian starting a ballet company founded in memory of her late husband.
Roland!
Please, call me what everyone else calls me, your royal sex machine. I wouldn't come without bringing you a terribly expensive gift. I hope you like it. It reminds me of you.
Roland, how thoughtful of you. But I believe I have one just like it.
Oh, no problem. I'll take it back and get the money.
Roland, her current attorney, competes against her former attorney, Edmund Laszlo, to be director of the company.
I demand this man be dismissed immediately.
Jacques, you're working for me now.
For what reason?
Does it make you angry?
Yes!
That's a good enough reason for me.
Much like the films of the Marx Brothers, there's also a romantic subplot centering around two ballet dancers. These scenes help flesh out the comedy scenes, which are truly the highlights of this movie. The trio at the center of this film are just fantastic in their sequences together.
How much?
$200 a week.
600.
300.
400. 800. 900.
Wait a minute. Shouldn't I be in this negotiation somewhere? $350, not a penny more.
I'll take it. What happened to 1,000? I allow for taxes. I want 4 weeks in advance. 5 weeks. 6 weeks.
Hold it. I'm giving you 1 minute to stop all of this.
2 minutes. 5 minutes. 7 minutes. 9 minutes. 10 minutes.
I've stepped into my own private little hell.
Again, while it's incredibly clear that they're each drawing inspiration from Groucho, Chico, and Harpo, they also do a lot of things differently with their characters. updating some of the Marx Brothers formula with modern jokes and props. The film was produced by the Zucker brothers and directed by future Happy Madison director Dennis Dugan. Apparently the film was originally shot under the title Lame Ducks, hence a pretty elaborate claymation opening featuring a duck. But when the Zucker brothers left for another studio, the movie was rebranded as Brain Donors. The movie did not fare well critically or financially, and appeared to fade into obscurity following its release. Though it would find moderate success on home video, I still find this to be one of those films that just many people haven't seen. Even for me growing up in the 90s, I never even heard about it. I only discovered it years later when reading up on the Marx Brothers, which led to my first viewing of this movie. But I think this movie is definitely worth revisiting or giving a watch if you've never seen it.
But complications nonetheless.
She's coming too, Doctor.
Now we got complications!
She's going out, Doctor.
The crisis is over. This is ludicrous! I don't think anyone will argue that point.
It accomplished something that the Laurel and Hardy and Three Stooges tribute struggled to do: stand on their own.
We mow it, 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 we mow it. In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight.
The film is also just over an hour and 15 minutes long, and makes for a quick, fun viewing experience. If you can find a DVD, be sure to grab one. I have a feeling this one will be out of print in another few years, and be hard to find once again. Hey everyone, thank you for watching this Almost Cult Classics review. As I said in this video, this was the first Almost Cult Classic review for a movie I didn't grow up with, and I really loved looking back and getting to watch this film with a new set of eyes for the first time. So if you have more suggestions for Almost Cult Classics for films you grew up with, please join the conversation on Twitter and on Patreon, and send some recommendations my way.